The first thing I heard was my daughter screaming my name through a courthouse hallway, and the second thing I saw was the mayor's son smiling while two uniformed officers dragged her away from him. Her cheek was swollen, her lip was split. One sleeve of her jacket was torn, and there was a thin red line running from her eyebrow down toward her temple. I stood 20 feet away, frozen for half a heartbeat, listening to the fluorescent lights buzz above us while the smell of disinfectant burned inside my nose. Then Officer Ryan Callahan looked directly at me and said, "Sir, you need to leave." I looked at my daughter, Samantha Brooks, 19 years old, trembling so badly she could barely keep her hands still. "Dad," she whispered, "they're letting him go." Behind Callahan stood Ethan Caldwell, the 23-year-old son of Mayor Gregory Caldwell, straightening his expensive jacket as though nothing had happened. He had a tiny scratch on his knuckle. My daughter had spent the night in an emergency room. Ethan had spent the night making phone calls. I didn't move. I looked at Callahan, then at Sergeant Marcus Doyle, then at the precinct commander standing near the doorway, Captain Thomas Weller. 3 men in uniform, 3 men who had supposedly come to protect my daughter, yet all 3 were standing between her and the person who had hurt her. Ethan smiled again. "This is all a misunderstanding." My daughter flinched when he spoke. That tiny movement told me more than any report could have. I walked toward her slowly. "Samantha, look at me." She lifted her eyes. They were wet and terrified, but behind the fear I saw anger. "Tell me what happened." Before she could answer, Captain Weller stepped between us. "Mr. Brooks, your daughter made an accusation, but there isn't sufficient evidence to hold Mr. Caldwell." I stared at him. "She has injuries. Injuries don't establish intent. She has witnesses. Statements conflict. There is security footage." Weller paused for the smallest fraction of a second. "The footage is inconclusive." That pause mattered. I had spent years noticing pauses like that. I had learned to recognize when someone was lying, when someone was afraid, and when someone had already rehearsed an answer. My daughter didn't know that side of me. To her, I was simply David Brooks, her father, a quiet consultant who traveled frequently and never discussed his work. She believed I had spent 20 years advising international companies. That was the cover story. The truth was different. For more than 2 decades, I had worked in clandestine intelligence operations for the CIA, operating under identities that weren't mine, and entering situations where official involvement could never be acknowledged. I had negotiated with dangerous people. I had extracted Americans from hostile territory. I had spent nights in rooms where every exit was watched. But none of that mattered until I saw my daughter's face. I walked past Weller and wrapped my arms around her. She buried her face against my shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." I closed my eyes. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Behind us, Ethan laughed softly. "This is ridiculous." I turned. My voice was calm, too calm. "Ethan, I suggest you leave." His smile faded slightly. "Who do you think you are?" I looked at the badge on his jacket. "Someone who remembers everything." He didn't understand. None of them did. They thought they were protecting a mayor's son from consequences. They didn't realize they had just placed themselves between a father and the only person in the world capable of making him abandon his patients. But before I could do anything, my phone vibrated. One message. No sender. 6 words. "We know who you really are, David." I took Samantha home before sunrise. She sat silently in the passenger seat, staring through the window as streetlights disappeared behind us. Every few minutes, I glanced at her reflection in the glass. She had stopped crying, but her fingers were still clenched around the sleeve of her jacket. When we arrived, I made tea and sat across from her at the kitchen table. "Start from the beginning," I said. Samantha took a breath. "Ethan invited me to a charity event at the mayor's house." I nodded. "Why did you go?" "Because I thought it was a scholarship event." Her voice cracked. "He kept telling me he liked me. I told him I wasn't interested." She stared at the table. Then he got angry. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Who else was there? His friends. 2 other girls. Security guards. Names? She gave me 3. I wrote them down. "Then what?" He grabbed my wrist. I pulled away. He pushed me. She touched her cheek. I hit the edge of a table. I remained silent. I tried to leave. He blocked the door. She swallowed hard. He said nobody would believe me because his father was mayor. I looked at her. Did anyone see? A waiter. She gave me his name, and one of the girls recorded part of it. That changed the situation. Where's the recording? Ethan took her phone. I nodded slowly. Did he threaten you afterward? He said if I reported him, he'd make sure you lost your job. I almost smiled at that. My job? Samantha looked confused. What? Nothing. I didn't tell her that the job Ethan thought he could threaten was a fictional position. My real employment didn't exist in any public database. My personnel file was buried behind layers of classification. Even people inside government didn't know the full extent of what I had done. I had spent years learning how to disappear, but I had also learned something more important. When someone powerful believes the law belongs to him, the first mistake is confronting him emotionally. The second is underestimating how much evidence already exists. I opened my laptop. Samantha watched me. Dad, what are you doing? Making sure we don't lose anything. I copied every photograph of her injuries, every hospital record, every message Ethan had sent her, every call log. Then I asked her for the names of everyone she remembered from the event. Why? She asked. Because memories fade. Records don't. She studied me. You've changed. I looked at her. How? You don't look angry. I paused. I am angry. You don't look it. I closed the laptop. Anger is useful only when you control it. She didn't understand what that meant. She would later. At noon, I called an old colleague named Jonathan Pierce. Jonathan had worked with me years ago in a classified environment. He answered on the second ring. David, I need a favor. You don't call unless it's serious. My daughter was attacked by the mayor's son. Silence. Do you want legal assistance? Eventually. First I need to know why the precinct is protecting him. Jonathan understood immediately. Give me the precinct name. I did. He called back 3 hours later. You were right. About what? Captain Weller has received campaign donations through 3 shell organizations connected to the mayor's family. I leaned back. Anything else? Sergeant Doyle transferred out of Internal Affairs 6 months ago. Why? He was investigating the mayor's security contractor. And Officer Callahan? Jonathan hesitated. Callahan has been accessing sealed records. Whose? Yours. I stared at the screen. Someone inside the precinct wasn't just protecting Ethan. They were searching for information about me. That meant the attack on Samantha might have been the beginning of something larger. I asked Jonathan one question. How much do they know? He answered quietly. Enough to be dangerous. That night, I checked every lock in the house. Then I noticed something unusual. Samantha's bedroom window had been opened from the outside. The next morning, I didn't send Samantha back to college. I told her she would stay with my sister, Rachel Brooks, until we understood what was happening. Samantha argued for 10 minutes, then finally hugged me. Please don't do anything stupid, she said. I promised her I wouldn't. It was the easiest promise I had ever made, because stupidity was the one thing I had spent my entire career eliminating. I drove to the precinct alone. Captain Weller was waiting in his office. He looked irritated rather than surprised. Mr. Brooks, Captain, your daughter has made an allegation. An allegation supported by medical records, witnesses, and messages. Weller leaned back. You're making this political. You made it political when you protected the mayor's son. His expression hardened. Be careful. I smiled faintly. That's advice I give myself every morning. Weller didn't know what to make of me. He had expected an angry father. Instead, he got a man asking precise questions. I asked for the incident report. He refused. I asked for the security footage. He refused. I asked for the names of the officers who responded. He gave me 2 names. Neither matched the names Samantha remembered. That was interesting. Where's Officer Callahan? I asked. Unavailable. Why? Personal leave. I stood. Captain, I'm giving you one opportunity to correct this. He laughed. You think you can threaten me? No. I looked directly at him. I'm telling you there is still time to choose the right side. I walked out. In the hallway, Sergeant Marcus Doyle was waiting. He looked exhausted. Mr. Brooks, you were in Internal Affairs. His eyes narrowed. Who told you? Doesn't matter. He looked around before speaking. You need to stop. Why? Because people are watching your family. I studied him. Are you one of them? No. Then help me. Doyle lowered his voice. Ethan Caldwell has been protected for years. Complaints disappear. Witnesses change statements. Officers get transferred. Who orders it? He hesitated. Captain Weller gets instructions from the mayor's chief of staff. Name? Martin Keegan. I recognized it. Martin Keegan was a political fixer with connections to private security firms. Doyle continued, "But Keegan isn't the top." "Who is?" "Mayor Caldwell himself." I expected that. What I didn't expect was the next sentence. "And someone outside city government." Doyle handed me a folded piece of paper. This came from a confidential source. I opened it. There was an address and a name, Caleb Thornton. "Who's Thornton?" I asked. "Private contractor." "What does he do?" "He handles problems the mayor doesn't want handled officially." I looked at the address. "Why give this to me?" Doyle stared at me. "Because I have a daughter too." I folded the paper. "You may have just put yourself in danger." "I already am." That afternoon, I followed Thornton's trail without approaching him. His company owned 2 warehouses and a security firm. Financial records showed payments from organizations connected to the mayor, but there was something else. Thornton had been hired the same week Samantha was attacked. I sat in my car across from his office, watching employees come and go. Then a black sedan stopped. Ethan Caldwell stepped out. He entered the building. 20 minutes later, he emerged with Thornton. They shook hands. Ethan handed him an envelope. I photographed the exchange. Then my phone vibrated again. This time the message contained a photograph of Samantha leaving Rachel's house. Beneath it were 4 words. "Stop investigating us." I stared at the screen until my breathing slowed. They had just made their biggest mistake. They had shown me exactly where the line was. I moved Samantha to a secure location without telling her where it was. Rachel helped, and Jonathan arranged additional protection through people I trusted. I knew the mayor's network was watching, so I deliberately fed them false information. We created 3 different travel plans, each with a different destination. Within 12 hours, one of those destinations was compromised. That told me someone was monitoring our communications. I contacted Jonathan. "We have an internal leak." "I know." "How?" "Because one of the numbers you gave me was already being tracked." I closed my eyes. "Which one?" He named it. I immediately understood. The precinct wasn't simply corrupt. It was integrated with a private intelligence network. Someone was collecting information about my family. Someone who understood surveillance. Someone who knew how to locate people who didn't want to be found. That meant I couldn't fight this as a normal civilian. I had to think like the person I had spent years trying to leave behind. I returned to an old safe deposit box and recovered a set of documents I hadn't touched in years. They contained emergency contacts, coded identifiers, and the names of people who could verify my background if necessary. I called one of them, a former agency attorney named Rebecca Hart. "I need help." Rebecca recognized my voice immediately. "David, I thought you were retired." "I am." "Then why are you calling?" "Someone is targeting my daughter." Silence. "Who?" I told her. She asked one question. "Do they know what you did?" "Someone sent me a message saying they know who I am." Rebecca exhaled. "Then we have a serious problem. Can you verify my identity through official channels?" "Yes, do it." Within hours, a sealed process began. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability, but I also knew the mayor's network would try to destroy evidence before investigators could act. So I built a timeline. Every call, every payment, every meeting, every witness, every piece of surveillance. We traced the shell companies to a holding firm registered in another state. That firm connected to Thornton. Thornton connected to Martin Keegan. Keegan connected directly to the mayor's campaign. The chain was clear. Then we found something worse. The mayor had used city police resources to intimidate previous witnesses. There were at least 7 complaints that had vanished. 7 people who had been told their cases weren't strong enough. 7 families who had learned the same lesson. Power protects itself. I wanted to confront the mayor immediately. Instead, Rebecca warned me, "Don't." Why? Because if you move too early, they will bury everything. What should I do? Let them believe you're losing, so I did. I stopped making calls. I stopped visiting the precinct. I allowed rumors to spread that I had backed down. Ethan became confident again. He started appearing publicly. He posted photographs from expensive restaurants. He smiled for cameras beside his father. The mayor gave interviews about public safety. Everyone thought the problem was disappearing, but behind the scenes, the evidence was growing. Then Ethan made another mistake. He contacted Samantha directly. "You should stop embarrassing my family," he wrote. Samantha didn't respond. She forwarded the message to me. I saved it. Then another message arrived. Your father isn't who you think he is. Samantha stared at the screen. Dad, what does he mean? I looked at her. He's trying to scare you, but inside, I knew something had changed. They weren't merely threatening my daughter anymore. They were trying to expose me, and if they were willing to do that, it meant someone had discovered just how dangerous my real identity could be. If you're enjoying this tactical justice story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories where powerful people discover that intimidation doesn't always work when they choose the wrong family to threaten. Because what happened next wasn't a confrontation. It was a controlled collapse. I met with Rebecca and Jonathan at a private location. We placed every document on a table. We have enough, Rebecca said. Not yet, I answered. We need the original recordings. Jonathan looked at me. Where? With the waiter. The witness Samantha had mentioned on the first night. His name was Daniel Alvarez. We found him working at a restaurant 2 counties away. He was terrified. I don't want trouble, he said. Neither do I. I showed him the photographs of Samantha's injuries. I just want the truth. Daniel finally admitted he had recorded the confrontation. He had kept the file because Ethan's security team had threatened him. They told me they'd ruin my business. Did they take your phone? Yes. But you kept a copy? Daniel nodded. He had transferred it to a private drive before surrendering the phone. That recording became the turning point. It captured Ethan threatening Samantha, blocking the door, and telling her that his father's influence would make any complaint disappear. It also captured Martin Keegan entering the room afterward. We had the missing link. The mayor's political fixer had been there. The precinct's story was collapsing. But I knew the mayor wouldn't surrender quietly. The following morning, Captain Weller called me. We should talk. About what? Your daughter. What about her? I can make this go away. I almost laughed. That's the problem. What do you want? The truth. You don't understand how this city works. I understand exactly how it works. He lowered his voice. You have no idea who you're fighting. I looked at him through the phone. You keep saying that. He paused. Because I know what happens to people who fight the mayor. What happened to you? Silence. Captain? He hung up. 2 hours later, Doyle called. Weller is scared. Good. No, you don't understand. He found out federal investigators are coming. How? Someone inside your operation told him. I froze. What operation? I don't know. That meant our internal leak was larger than we thought. Someone had access to information even Jonathan didn't know. I contacted Rebecca. We need to assume every channel is compromised. She agreed. Then she told me something that changed the strategy completely. David, your former agency status has been verified. And? The people protecting the mayor now know they have been targeting someone with a classified background. I sat quietly. Does the mayor know? Probably. Then he'll panic. Exactly. That afternoon, Mayor Gregory Caldwell held a press conference. He spoke about political attacks, misinformation, and an alleged conspiracy against his family. Ethan stood behind him. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. The mayor looked confident. Then a federal vehicle pulled into the street behind the press conference. The crowd turned. Agents stepped out. The mayor stopped speaking. Ethan's face went pale. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. But the agents weren't there to arrest him yet. They were there to serve subpoenas. The mayor had no idea what was coming, and neither did the public. The next 48 hours would expose everything. The federal investigation moved quietly at first. Bank accounts were frozen. Records were seized. Internal Affairs reopened 7 cases connected to the precinct. Daniel's recording was authenticated. Samantha gave her statement. Other witnesses came forward. One by one, the walls around the mayor began to close. Ethan was ordered to surrender his passport. Martin Keegan's office was searched. Captain Weller resigned before investigators could remove him. Sergeant Doyle stayed and testified. Officer Callahan disappeared for 3 days before surrendering through an attorney. Then the mayor called me personally. Mr. Brooks, Mayor, I want to resolve this. You should have thought about that before your son attacked my daughter. Ethan made mistakes. He hurt her. He's young. I felt my anger rise, but I kept my voice level. My daughter is 19. She'll carry those injuries longer than your son carries this scandal. The mayor became quiet. You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing. I smiled faintly. I understand them better than you do. He tried another approach. What if I publicly apologize? No. What if Ethan does? No. What do you want? The truth. And after that, justice. He hung up. 3 hours later, someone attempted to break into Rachel's house. They never got inside. The security team intercepted them and turned them over to authorities. That was the final escalation. The investigation shifted from corruption to coordinated intimidation. Federal agents now had enough grounds to pursue everyone involved. I met Samantha that night. She looked exhausted. Is it over? She asked. Not yet. Are you going to be okay? I looked at her. Yes. She hesitated. Dad, Ethan said you were dangerous. I smiled sadly. I know. Are you? I thought about that question for a long time. I learned dangerous things a long time ago. Her eyes filled with tears. Did you hurt people? I didn't lie. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to know me as your father, not as my past. She hugged me. You're still my dad. I closed my eyes. That's all I've ever wanted to be. The next morning, Ethan's attorney announced he would cooperate. He provided records showing payments from the mayor's office to Thornton's company. He also revealed that the mayor had ordered officers to suppress complaints involving his son. The precinct's corruption was no longer a rumor. It was documented fact. The city council began impeachment proceedings. The mayor's allies abandoned him. Public opinion turned overnight. But there was still one piece missing. Who had accessed my classified records? Rebecca discovered it through an audit. A private contractor had illegally purchased information from a former government employee. The contractor was connected to Martin Keegan. Keegan had been trying to determine whether I was truly who the mayor feared. They had searched for my identity because they wanted leverage. Instead, they had created evidence proving they had illegally targeted a former intelligence officer and his family. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had spent weeks trying to uncover my past. In doing so, they had built the case that would destroy theirs. The mayor was eventually removed from office. Ethan faced criminal charges related to the assault and witness intimidation. Captain Weller lost his badge. Martin Keegan received a long sentence after cooperating with investigators. Caleb Thornton's company was dismantled. The precinct underwent a complete internal investigation. Officers who had participated in suppressing complaints were fired or prosecuted. And Samantha slowly began rebuilding her life. She returned to college. She joined a self-defense program. She started speaking privately with other young women who had experienced intimidation from powerful people. She didn't become bitter. That was what made me proudest. One evening, she asked me to take a walk. Dad, I want to ask you something. Go ahead. If you hadn't been who you were, would they have gotten away with it? I looked at the sidewalk. Maybe. She stopped walking. That's horrible. It is. So what happens to people who don't have someone like you? I looked at her. That's why systems have to work even when individuals are powerful. She nodded. But they didn't. No. Then what changed? People started telling the truth. She thought about that. So that's what beat them. Truth, evidence, and people refusing to stay silent. She smiled slightly. Not your secret CIA skills. I laughed. Those helped me understand how to stay patient. She bumped my shoulder. You really are terrible at normal jobs. Apparently. We kept walking. For the first time since the attack, I felt something inside me finally relax. The danger was over. But I knew the memory would stay with Samantha. Trauma doesn't disappear because a courtroom reaches a verdict. It changes shape. It becomes something you learn to carry. My job as her father wasn't to erase what happened. It was to make sure what happened didn't define her future. Months later, Samantha gave a statement at a public hearing about police accountability. She stood at the microphone with her shoulders straight and her voice steady. She told the council that she had once believed powerful people could make the truth disappear. Then she said something that made the room completely silent. They couldn't make me disappear. I watched from the back row. She didn't know how proud I was. Afterward, she walked over and hugged me. You okay? She asked. I'm better than okay, you cried. No, I didn't, Dad. Fine, she laughed. That laugh was the sound I had been waiting to hear since the night everything started. Not fear, not panic, not anger, just happiness. I had spent decades in shadows, believing that protecting someone meant keeping danger away from them. I eventually learned that sometimes protection means standing beside them while they face the truth themselves. Samantha didn't need me to fight every battle. She needed to know I would be there when the battle came. That was the real victory. The mayor's son had tried to silence her. Instead, he gave her a reason to find her voice. The corrupt precinct had tried to erase her complaint. Instead, it exposed itself. The mayor had tried to protect his family name. Instead, he destroyed his own career. And I had been forced to reveal a part of myself I had hidden for years. But even after everything, Samantha still called me Dad, not agent, not operative, not whatever classified title had once appeared on documents, just Dad. That was enough. A year after the attack, I returned to the courthouse where everything had begun. The hallway looked exactly the same. Same fluorescent lights, same polished floor, same doors. But I felt different walking through it. I remembered Samantha's swollen cheek. I remembered Ethan's smile. I remembered the officers telling me to leave. I remembered the anonymous message saying they knew who I was. This time, there were no threats. No intimidation, no powerful family standing between my daughter and the truth. Samantha was beside me. She looked around and smiled. Feels smaller now. It does. We stood there for a moment. Do you ever wish you had done something differently? She asked. I thought about it. I wish I had noticed sooner that the world around you wasn't as safe as I believed. You can't protect me from everything. I know. She took my hand. That's why I don't need you to. That sentence stayed with me. Because fathers often think protection means building a wall around their children. But children grow. They need strength of their own. Samantha had found hers. I had found mine in a different place. I had learned that my most valuable skill wasn't surveillance or strategy or knowing how to operate under pressure. It was knowing when not to act. The corrupt officers wanted me angry. Ethan wanted me reckless. The mayor wanted me frightened. The people behind the network wanted me predictable. I gave them none of those things. I gave them patience. I gave them evidence. And eventually, I gave them consequences. There was no dramatic final confrontation, no secret room. No moment where I stood over someone and decided his fate. The real victory happened in courtrooms, financial offices, evidence rooms, and witness interviews. It happened when ordinary people decided they were done being afraid. That is what broke the system. Not one man, not one secret agency, not one father's anger. A chain of people choosing truth over fear. I still remember the night Samantha called me from the precinct. Her voice was shaking. She thought the system had failed her. In that moment, I wanted to become the person I had been trained to become, the person who could solve a problem permanently. But I remembered my own past. Every time violence had been used as the first answer, it had created another problem. Every time someone believed power gave them permission to decide who deserved what, innocent people paid the price. I didn't want Samantha to grow up believing strength meant hurting people. I wanted her to understand that strength could mean standing in front of a room full of powerful men and telling the truth. She did that, and she did it without me standing beside her. That was the real victory. The mayor's son had once believed his father's position made him untouchable. The precinct had believed loyalty to power was more important than loyalty to the law. The mayor had believed his office could shield his family from consequences. They were all wrong. The truth doesn't need a badge. It doesn't need a title. It doesn't need a weapon. It only needs someone willing to carry it into the light. Samantha became that person. I became the father who stood behind her, and the system eventually did what it was supposed to do. It held the guilty accountable. That is how the story ended, not with revenge, with justice. And that distinction matters because revenge asks how much pain you can return. Justice asks how you can stop the same pain from happening again. If I had learned nothing else in my years of classified service, I learned that difference. Anyone can destroy. It takes far more strength to protect without becoming destructive yourself. The corrupt precinct thought it was protecting a powerful family. Instead, it exposed itself. The mayor thought his influence made him untouchable. Instead, it became evidence. Ethan thought my daughter was alone. She wasn't. And when he finally understood who her father was, it was already too late. Not because I had threatened him, because the truth had become bigger than him. Sometimes people ask me whether I regret the years I spent working in intelligence. I tell them regret is complicated. I lost friends. I missed birthdays. I spent holidays in places where I couldn't tell anyone where I was. I learned to sleep lightly and trust carefully. I learned that danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wears a suit. Sometimes it carries a badge. Sometimes it sits behind a desk and signs a document that ruins someone else's life. But I also learned that fear is a tool. and tools can be used for good or evil. The mayor's network used fear to control people. I used discipline to protect my daughter. Those are not the same thing. On the anniversary of the attack, Samantha and I went to dinner. She ordered dessert before the meal, something she had done since childhood. Some things never change, I told her. She laughed. You still lecture me. It's my job. I thought your job was classified. I smiled. That too. We talked about ordinary things, classes, friends, her plans for graduate school, nothing about the mayor, nothing about the precinct, nothing about the night she had been hurt. That was when I realized the story was finally becoming part of the past. Not erased, not forgotten, just no longer controlling the present. Before we left, Samantha looked at me. Dad? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For believing me. I didn't answer immediately. There was never a question. She smiled. I know. We walked outside. The night air was cool. Traffic moved through the city. People laughed outside restaurants. Somewhere nearby, a police siren sounded and disappeared into the distance. Once, that sound would have made my instincts activate. Now I simply listened. Life had returned to normal. And normal, I had learned, was a privilege. The mayor's son had once believed his father's position made him untouchable. The precinct had believed loyalty to power was more important than loyalty to the law. The mayor had believed his office could shield his family from consequences. They were all wrong. The truth doesn't need a badge. It doesn't need a title. It doesn't need a weapon. It only needs someone willing to carry it into the light. My daughter became that person. I became the father who stood behind her, and the system eventually did what it was supposed to do. It held the guilty accountable. That is how the story ended. Not with revenge, with justice. And that distinction matters because revenge asks how much pain you can return. Justice asks how you can stop the same pain from happening again. If I had learned nothing else in my years of classified service, I learned that difference. Anyone can destroy. It takes far more strength to protect without becoming destructive yourself. The corrupt precinct thought it was protecting a powerful family. Instead, it exposed itself. The mayor thought his influence made him untouchable. Instead, it became evidence. Ethan thought my daughter was alone. She wasn't. And when he finally understood who her father was, it was already too late. Not because I had threatened him, because the truth had become bigger than him. Where are you watching from? Comment your city or country below. What kind of story do you want next? Military revenge, psychological thriller, or emotional family justice? And here's the moral dilemma I want you to debate. If you were in my shoes, and a corrupt precinct protected the powerful person who hurt your daughter, would you have waited for the legal system to expose them, or would you have been tempted to take justice into your own hands? Would you have been able to stay calm after seeing your child hurt and hearing powerful people laugh about it? Tell me where you would draw the line, because sometimes the hardest battle isn't defeating the person who hurt someone you love. It's refusing to let their cruelty turn you into someone you don't recognize. If this story meant something to you, remember the lesson. Power without accountability becomes corruption, but truth backed by courage can bring even powerful people down. Take care of your families, believe the people who trust you, stand against intimidation. And when the world tells you that someone is too powerful to challenge, remember that power can look enormous until the evidence turns on the lights. Stay strong, stay safe, and keep standing for the people who matter most. I'll see you in the next story.
Hello, Kamanox, my YouTube family. How are you? Thanks for watching my all videos and appreciate likes. This is my baby. So here, today I am with my baby barking. चलो चलो मारते मारते ऐसे यहाँ से चढ़े आप चलो. So yesterday YouTube gave me monetization tool. Now I am my channel YouTube partner program. Thanks for you watching all video. You must be seen last part this video. My personal suggestion talking I am with you. This is my baby, my son. walking on the park. Just enjoy the sliding. Thank you, my all YouTube family watching my videos. Chalo, aajo, come on, come on, come on, yeah. Go, 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 go. Very good. चलो आ जाओ, फिर दोबारा आ जाओ. चलो कम ऑन. अभी रुक जाऊं. ओके स्टॉप. स्टॉपिंग स्टॉपिंग स्टॉपिंग. पी पी पी. गाड़ी. व्हील्स ऑन द गो बस. व्हील्स ऑन द गो बस. राउंड एंड राउंड.